Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back. Hope you guys are doing great and staying safe, staying healthy. And today we are going to do an After Effects tutorial, and this time we are going to create fire. So we are going to use all the plugins or whatever resources we have available in After Effects. We are going to simulate the fire from those plugins and whatever we have there. We're not going to use any third-party plugins. Then we are going to use that fire in our day-to-day footage, how we can integrate that fire into our maybe in video footage or maybe some other footage. So we are going to simulate this fire as realistic as possible. We are going to try few settings, few options, but I would always recommend to use the real fire if you are going to shoot in the movies or some other videos where you want the fire. So it's always recommended that you use the real footage, because nothing can actually simulate the fire. But we're going to try to do that, and we're going to try to go as close as possible. So without wasting your time, let's start.
All right, so I'm in the After Effects, and as I said that we will not be needing any kind of external plugins or any other apps. We will try to create everything within the After Effects with ease. So I'm not going to focus on the settings, what settings I use and what settings you should use. It all depends upon you. You can just follow the basic workflow, or you can just use the same settings as I use, then you can manipulate them according to your need. First of all, I'm going to create a new composition. So in order to create a new composition, we can either go to the composition menu and click new composition. We can create new composition by right clicking and new composition, or we can go to the composition icon, clicking on it, and we can create a new composition. So I'm going to use 60 frames per second, and I don't have a good system for that reason. I think it will take a lot of time to render, but I still am going to use 60 frames. And let's name this composition as fire main. Now let's create a new solid. Right click, new solid, and let's name this fire core. Make sure to make comp size and click OK. Now let's go to our effects and presets tab and search for the particle. We are going to use the CC particle systems to drag and drop it on the fire core. As you can see, we have our particles on the screen, and we are going to adjust the position. We can either drag the origin position down, or we can move it any direction, or we can simply adjust the position in the producer section. So I'm going to do that because we know that fire originates from below, so for that reason I'm going to choose that. And in the physics section, I am going to change the animation to fire, because obviously we are choosing the fire, so it's better to choose the fire. All right, as you can see, it's originating from the small point, and we don't want that, so we have to adjust the radius in the x-axis. I would also request you guys to keep the preview window, or to keep the marker or the cursor in between, so that you can see what change you are making on this composition. Otherwise, if you keep your marker at the beginning, at that time you will not be able to see the change that you made or the settings that you did in the effects control panel. Now I'm going to go to the particle section, and I'm going to choose the particle type as faded sphere, and we are going to increase the radius in the x-axis in producer section. The important factor that we need to adjust is resistance. There is a lot of environmental impact, a lot of things that impact the fire, so we are going to increase the resistance. And resistance will be just like when there is air, or when there are other particles, or when there are other elements in the air. So at that time we see how the fire reacts, so resistance is going to kind of play that role. So it's not going to let the fire go loose, it's going to keep it under control. So resistance is up to you how you want to change it. I may need to change it in fact later, but for now I'm going to just get an idea how my composition, how my fire is going to look. Let me increase the longevity, as we know that longevity is the time for which the particles are on the screen, or for the time they are kind of alive, they do not die. And birth size, let's decrease, and I'm going to increase the death size. Let me decrease the birth rate. I'm going to adjust this. I don't want that many particles. Now this is it. This is the main setting that we had to do to our fire core. Now we are going to duplicate this fire core layer. In order to duplicate, we can either press Ctrl D on the keyboard, or we can simply go to edit and duplicate. Now let's adjust the position of this duplicate layer. I'm going to drag it to the left, just a little closer to our main fire. Let's adjust few settings onto this layer, and I'm going to choose black matte transfer mode. For the particle type, I'm going to choose the shaded sphere. And let's increase the random seed. So in physics section, we are going to increase the velocity. Let's decrease the resistance. And let's keep the size variation from 60 to 70, and also decrease the depth size. And let's adjust the longevity and birth rate. Now that's it, the setting for the left side. Now I'm going to duplicate our this layer. Just press the Ctrl D on your keyboard. Now let's take this left side, duplicate to the right side. I am sure you might have got the idea what I'm doing here. Now let's play this. Okay, now we are almost there. As you can see, it has started to take the shape of the fire. Let's go to the main fire core, and let's adjust the longevity, say 2 seconds. So I'm going to experiment with the longevity. When I think I'm comfortable with the setting, I'm going to choose that one. Now let's create a new adjustment layer. So simply right click, new adjustment layer. Now let's go to effect and distort and choose turbulent displace. As you can see, this has displaced the whole layer, so I'm going to first decrease the size, and the amount I'm going to increase. Where I think I'm comfortable, I'm going to choose that amount. Complexity I also want to increase. Offset turbulence is something which is important, so I'm going to animate the offset turbulence. I'm going to go to the beginning and put the keyframe there. Then let me take the marker to the end, and let's decrease the offset turbulence in the negative direction, and you will see that it kind of moves upwards, which is kind of realistic. Now let's select the adjustment layer and let's go to the effect and choose the color correction, then choose the colorama. So this is an incredible effect. This is what we are going to use here. Open this effect and go to the output cycle. Use the preset palette as fire. Now you can see this has started to take the shape of the fire. So I'm going to go to the input phase, and there I'm going to choose red. You can choose any color which you want, but for now I'm going to stick with the saturation because I'm going to create two fires. As you saw in the beginning of the video, I have created two fires, and first fire I'm going to create is like this. Now let's go to the fire core. So I'm going to keep adjusting and see what looks better on this. I'm going to do this for both right and the left fire. Now let's select our adjustment layer and let's search for an effect known as extract. Drag and drop it on the adjustment layer. Channel is luminance, and we are going to adjust the black and white points. So this we can adjust if we want this in our footage, we can adjust later. We can use the extract in better way. I just wanted to show you this basic how we can use this saturation effect to create a more realistic fire, because this looks like it's really hot, really high temperature fire. This was just to give you an idea how this actually looks. As you can see, in between you can adjust the birth rate and the particles and particle size to change the position, to change the shape, and it will really look good. After this fire, I'm going to show you guys how we can create another type of fire, which is even more easy. this was to show you guys how a saturation effect, just choosing the saturation effect, how that can give us almost realistic stock fire. We can use this fire in our footage using the screen or the add option, the blending modes, and it might give better result there. And then we can adjust this fire using the mask. We can create the mask to remove those additional things. So let me show you how this actually will look with our video footage. So let's first select all these elements and pre-compose them. Let's name this fire core 1. Okay, now drag our footage here, and going to choose the screen. Now you can see this looks more realistic. If we make few adjustments, few color corrections and a little bit masking, it should look perfect. So I hope you guys got the basic idea how we can create almost realistic stock like fire footage which you can use in your compositions anywhere. I know this one is not so perfect for a simple reason because I didn't make any adjustments. My focus is to show you guys to make other kind of fire which we are going to go in the second part of this video. We can use the mask to remove this white part and then use the feathering to adjust this. I'm going to subtract this part and increase the mask feather. So there are a lot of ways how you can merge this with your footage, and to make it more realistic we need to have some kind of distortion before the fire, because whenever we look uh, towards the other screen and in between there is fire, we know that there is a kind of distortion on the screen. I have seen a lot of people creating fire, but they forget this basic nature of the fire, the physical aspect where the physics applies, and that is it distorts the environment, it distorts the air. When you look through that air you will see a slight refraction or some kind of distortion, or it's like blurry around the fire if you look through that. So we are going to do that as well. As I said, that we will try to get as close as possible to the realistic fire, and then you can use the color corrections to make it more perfect. You can try different blending modes, whichever mode you think is good you can try those. You can use any kind of blending mode, you can use whatever works for you. You can use the levels to adjust the brightness of your footage, of your fire footage, fire composition rather. The levels are perfect for this kind of footage. You can adjust that. And if you want to make this more realistic, since I just wanted to show you how we create this, I'm not focusing on the tracking or other detail. Now that was just to show you the basic thing. Now I'm going to create a new fire, and in the end I'm going to show you how we can use that distort which I was talking about. Just as we did earlier, let's create a new composition. Let's name it fire new. let's create a new solid. And search for the particle and use the particle systems second. We're going to do exactly the same that we did in the previous section. So we are going to do exactly same. We are going to adjust the settings. We are going to use almost all the similar settings that we did in the previous section, but this time we are not going to use the saturation. In the last video we used the saturation to create that kind of realistic stock fire. So I'm going to duplicate this in the similar way. This time I'm not going to choose the transfer mode as matte. We are going to choose the transfer mode as composite. And in the mode I'm going to choose Silhouette Alpha. And I'm going to choose Shaded Sphere. So in the last video we used the black matte, but right now we are going to stick with the composite. Adjust the settings. So for this I'm going to choose random seed as 50 and maximum opacity around 80. I can go up to 90 as well. Size variation 74 and depth size is 1.55. That's okay. And bird size is also 0.13. Fine. Now let's duplicate this solid and move it to the right. So this is our basic structure for the new fire, and this is how it's going to work. Now let's create new adjustment layer. And let's search for the effect. The effect name is as we chose in the previous distort, and then we are going to choose the turbulent displace. We're going to do exactly the same as we did in the last section. There is so much we can do with these settings. Now let's go to the effect and go to the color correction and choose colorama. So same we are going to do, and this time I'm going to go to input phase and get phase from, I'm going to choose alpha. This is a kind of bonfire fire. As you can see, if I turn on the transparency, you can see there is a lot of black around this fire. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to adjust this wheel output cycle. I'm going to take it towards the light so that this is almost vanished. I'm going to use the effect, color correction and levels. I'm going to play with the levels a little bit. Let's adjust the birth rate in our main particle, just as we did in the previous section. So adjusting the particles and few more settings. that can decrease this hotness in this fire. There are a lot of presets in Colorama, and we can use fire and smoke as well. There is a lot to be done. Now let's select all these layers and pre-compose them. This will be my pre-comp 1. Let's drag our footage here, the similar and the same footage, and let's try to adjust this. And this time also I'm going to experiment with the different blending modes. So we can do a lot of things here. We can adjust the settings, but as we did in the last section, we can then make it more realistic by using the masks as well as the color correction. But I'm going to show you how we can add the distort effect, the distortion, just so that it looks more realistic, and so that it follows the basic nature of the fire. So to do that, I'm going to create another layer for that. So I'm going to create another layer. So to do that, we need to create another solid, make comp size and OK. On this, I'm going to use particle playground. So to remember this particle playground, this effect will take a lot of power from your computer. So try to use less particles for this. Since we want this to move up, so we are going to play with the gravity. The first thing that I'm going to do is particles per second. Let's decrease that. I want from 5 to 20. I'm going to decrease the velocity as well. Now gravity is something I want very less. I want these to move upwards, because that distortion is created because of the heat. Now let's increase the barrel size up to the point where I think whole of the fire is included. And we can keep on adjusting the particles per second velocity. So this really depends on you guys how you want to create this. So as I said, that we just have to do the basic framework. So I'm going to name this ripple because I want that ripple effect, that distortion which is created by the fire. It will look very good, or I would say more realistic if we use the tracking, but that we are going to do in the coming videos. The distortion is too slow, so we want this to be following our fire. Wherever fire is going, we should see those particles in that direction, at that position. I'm going to adjust this position. I'm going to see where fire starts, then adjust the ripple layer and start our ripple layer from that point. Let's increase the particle size drastically to 50 or 60. And let's try to increase the barrel radius. I'm trying to adjust this as per my fire, so I don't want these ripples go faster than the fire. They should follow the fire. increase the radius of the particles. That way we can see the ripples clearly. It kind of seems that it's following what I wanted to. Now let me duplicate this ripple. Choose the color as green, and now let's select ripple 1 and ripple 2 and pre-compose them. Move all attributes into the new composition and name it ripple main. So this is my ripple main. I'm going to choose another effect, and this time I'm going to use displacement map. Put the displacement map effect on your video footage. In the displacement map layer, we are going to choose a ripple main. Red used for horizontal displacement, green for vertical displacement. That's why we choose red and green color. And we are going to increase the maximum horizontal displacement to 6 and use maximum vertical displacement to 6. Now let's hide our ripple main layer. If you can see clearly, there is distortion in the air. Previously, if you could see, there was no distortion. Now if you can see around the fire, there is clearly distortion. If I disable this effect displacement map, you will see that it's moving normally. But if I use this effect, you'll see that kind of everything around it is distorting around the fire, which is actually nice, which is good. It makes it believe that yes, it's fire. As you can see, there are kind of waves, small ripples. We can adjust the ripple main layer or the composition. Further, we can move the green a little bit higher and place the red a little bit lower so that they are not overlapping. That we can do, but the idea was to show you how we can create that distortion effect, that distortion which appears in the air. I'm disabling this again to see the difference. As you can see, this is without the effect. There's no change here. Now I'm turning the effect on, and as you can see, there are now changes. If you want to make more distortion or you want these layers to move more, you can actually use higher size. You can create bigger particles, but that will not look good. Just like our previous footage, previous composition, the fire that we created, we used the mask section. We can also use the mask for this footage as well to merge it down with our main video. As you can see, this footage, that video I took, is not clear. There is so much difference in the color, so I know that this footage is not good. So my motto was to show how we can create the fire, then merging it according to your footage. I'm sure that you know that we have to do the color correction to match the footage, so that is the secondary question. The primary is how to create the fire. So I'm hoping that you guys learned today how we can create fire from scratch and then use it in our footage, in the compositions. And in the coming videos we are going to learn a lot how we can create fire emitting from the dragon's mouth. Obviously I'm not going to create dragon, but I'm going to show you how we can create that fire and how we can use the fire elements, fireballs, fire VFX, or the fire visuals that we have mostly seen in the movies. And I'm going to show you how we can create better effects, better VFX. So stay with me, do subscribe, comment, like, share. If you have any kind of suggestion, requests, or whatever you want to say, just post below. I will be responding to every and